Welcome to Day 10, Cycling the Carretera Austral with Austral Bikes Guide, Puyuhuapi to Parque Nacional Queulat. When most people think of epic cycling adventures, they imagine covering hundreds of kilometers a day. But what if I told you one of Patagonia's most breathtaking experiences involves riding just 22 kilometers?
That's such an interesting perspective. How this short distance completely turns the typical adventure narrative on its head. And the destination, VentisqueroColgante, even sounds magical.
Well, let me break down why this particular stretch is so special. You're starting in Puyuhuapi, following this pristine fjord, where the water mirrors the mountains so perfectly that photographers often can't tell which way's up in their shots.
Hmm. So it's almost like nature's own infinity pool? Tell me more about how the route unfolds.
You know what's brilliant about the design? The first 14 kilometers are relatively flat, following the fjord's edge. It's like nature's warm-up routine. But then, and here's where it gets interesting, you hit this 8-kilometer climb through what scientists consider one of the world's most unique temperate rainforests.
The contrast between those two sections must create such a dramatic experience. What makes this rainforest so special?
Well, imagine cycling through an ecosystem where some trees are over 500 years old, completely draped in rare species of moss that only grow in this specific microclimate. And then there are these unexpected waterfalls, some dropping more than 100 meters, just casually appearing beside you as you climb.
That's exactly the kind of detail that makes this journey sound so extraordinary. The combination of ancient forest and dynamic water features must create an almost prehistoric atmosphere.
Right? And here's what's fascinating about the glacier itself. The Ventisquero Colgante is actually retreating at a rate of about 30 meters per year, which makes each visit increasingly precious. The 3.3-kilometer hiking trail to view it was specifically designed to showcase how climate change is affecting these ancient ice formations.
So this isn't just about the view, it's about witnessing a changing landscape in real time.
Exactly. And you know what's really interesting? The park rangers have documented that the waterfall flowing from the glacier has actually increased in volume over the past decade as more ice melts, creating what they call a dynamic monument to climate change.
The way they've integrated environmental education into adventure tourism is really thoughtful. What about the practical aspects of this journey?
So here's something cool. They've actually timed this section to be the halfway point of the larger Carretera Austral journey because studies show that cyclists are most likely to experience fatigue-related injuries just after the midpoint of long-distance rides. By placing this shorter, more contemplative day here, they reduce injury rates by almost 40%.
That's such smart planning, using human psychology and physical data to enhance the experience.
And get this, the camping areas in the park are positioned based on detailed wildlife corridor studies. They found that placing campsites in specific locations reduces human-wildlife conflict by about 60%, while actually increasing the chance of seeing rare species like pudus, the world's smallest deer.
The whole experience seems to be this perfect balance between adventure and preservation.
You know what's really fascinating? The local indigenous Kawascar people have a name for this type of glacier. They call it the breath of the mountain, because they observed how these hanging glaciers seem to regulate the local climate, like a giant natural air conditioner.
That traditional knowledge adds such a rich layer to the scientific understanding of these formations.
And speaking of climate, the area around Queulat receives an average of 4,000 millimeters of rain annually. That's more than 4 times what London gets. But here's the interesting part. Statistical analysis shows that morning rides have an 80% chance of clear views of the glacier.
The way they've incorporated all this data into creating the optimal experience is remarkable.
Well, it all comes down to this idea that sometimes the most impactful journeys aren't about distance, they're about depth. The park's visitor surveys show that this 22-kilometer section consistently ranks as the most memorable part of the entire Carretera Austral route.
That really challenges our assumptions about what makes an adventure meaningful, doesn't it?
Absolutely right. And you know what? The data backs this up. Studies of long-distance cyclists show that their strongest memories often come from these shorter, more intensive experiences, rather than the longer riding days.
That's such a powerful reminder about quality over quantity in travel.
And on that note, I think we've discovered why this little 22-kilometer stretch has become such a legendary part of the Patagonian cycling experience. It's not about how far you go, but how deeply you connect with where you are.